Coming in at number 10, we have the evil sorcerer Watan. One of the arch enemies of the classic DC hero Dr. Fate, Watan is a green-skinned magic wielder that has managed to fight Dr. Fate over the ages by constantly reincarnating themselves into a new body and form after each defeat, seemingly incapable of having their spirit totally destroyed. Originally a woman from the Stone Age who had trained in black magic, and also rumored to be connected to a Viking goddess, Watan is one of the oldest villains throughout all of DC Comics history, and will likely continue to be a magical thorn in Dr. Fate's side for the rest of time. Coming in at number 9, we have Eclipso, the former Wrath of God. A supernatural agent of chaos with his face permanently in the shade of a constant eclipse, Eclipso claimed to be the one who carried out the biblical flood of Noah's Ark, and that he was replaced in his position as the physical embodiment of God's wrath by the Spectre because Eclipso was simply too violent and angry for the role. Older than almost every other being on Earth, Eclipso has fought many heroes over the years, and even though he no longer possesses the power of a full god, he is still an extremely dangerous magical being, and who knows what he'll try to do next to regain his godly power.
Number 8. The Dire Wraiths. Back when the Skrulls were still in their early stages of existence, the Celestials came to Skrullos and experimented on all of these life forms. Now, some of these Skrulls grew up to become the Dire Wraiths. They studied black magic and they got out of Dodge. They were like, cool, good info, you guys are all pretty nuts, we're out of here. They use magic and technology to take on the form of other species, and they would try and take over the world with these abilities. They're bad guys. The Earth would have just been wiped out probably by these guys if Rom the Space Knight didn't have a device to reveal a Dire Wraith. It's kind of like the eyes of truth, the lens of truth from Zelda. You're like, that's a Dire Wraith right there. Nice genes, you're a Wraith. They emerged from the deviant Skrulls, and when Galactus came to their homeworld, they made it rain acid and destroyed all of his equipment. Yeah, they made it rain acid. So, they're evil. The sorcery is strong with this one, for sure. Number 7. Selene. She made her first debut in New Mutants issue 9. Selene was born around 17,000 years ago in Europe, so she's a bit old, right after the oceans swallowed Atlantis. She's known as the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club, and she blends her mutant abilities with her magical abilities. So she's quite a pain in the neck. Well, actually, if she made contact with your neck, you would turn into dust. What makes Selene so powerful yet feared is that she has life force absorption. She can drain the life forces of a human and then absorb that power for herself. It keeps her young and beautiful. Maybe that's Jennifer Aniston's secret. Maybe that's it all along. I don't know. I'm just guessing. It would make sense. Timeline, it would make sense. Who knows? But not only does the victim's body crumble to dust, but Selene takes your memories. She'll be hanging out and she's like, did I forget my phone charger? No, wait, no, that was Brian, the guy I just absorbed. Yeah, see, I lose track sometimes. Come on, let's go. Number 6, Agatha Harkness. Now, of course, we gotta mention Agatha. I mean, it was Agatha all along, right, guys? We just saw her show her true colors as WandaVision came to an end. Agatha Harkness is pretty old, as most witches ought to be. She made her first comic book debut in Fantastic Four issue 94. She was in the 17th century Salem witch trials, and what she would do is she would turn over various sorcerers to these witch haters, and her whole idea was that she made the witch community stronger by ridding it of those who couldn't defend themselves. Okay. So she had one child named Nicholas Scratch, who was a warlock. Now, in WandaVision, we meet Senior Scratchy, and there was even a deleted scene that showed him in his demonic form and in action, but they cut that because of COVIDs. Sad. She's an expert with spells, and as she gets older, even older than she already is, she becomes physically weaker, which makes sense. Your bones get brittle, you gotta drink your milk. But she does have a cat, the classic witch thing. She's got a cat named Ebony, which is a powerful, extra-dimensional creature. She uses the cat to run errands, you know, having old knees and all. She's like, can you grab me some milk? Thanks. Old ladies are watching this, they're like, that was offensive. Didn't like that one. Number 5, Malekith the Accursed. Making his first appearance in Thor issue 344, Malekith was a dark elf born the 13th son to a 13th son. I'm like the second son to a second son. And that guy's name's Douglas. I'm not even nearly as cool as this guy. He was the leader of the Dark Elves, and when it comes to magic, he's a natural. He was born that way, baby. Malekith can manipulate great amounts of mystical energy for whatever reasons he needs. He can use magic to alter his own appearance. The dude at one point turns himself into mist, like the Coca-Cola mist zone at theme parks. Dude can just hang out as mist and cool you down. And if the mystic mist isn't cutting it for transportation, he can straight up teleport. And he can teleport through dimensions as well, so cool. Who needs Uber? That girl was coughing on the Ubers. She's like, oh, can I turn to mist? How do I get around town? I honestly love the look of Malekith in the comics. Thor the Dark World, I mean, least favorite Thor movie by far, but the Dark Elf stuff was fun, I think, for a little. One of my favorite tricks by Malekith is when he used magic to heal himself whilst also appearing dead, which is what I do every time I fall asleep on the bus. He does have a weakness though, iron. Yeah, his powers don't work against iron, and if he were to make physical contact with iron, it would burn his skin. So Iron Man, what's up? Not actually iron, I know guys, I know. Number 4, Morgan Le Fay. Medieval witches in alternate timelines. That should sell you enough, that's it. Making her first appearance in Black Knight issue 1 back in 1955, after Atlantis sunk way back in the day, there were islands that were left over. And on the largest of those islands, Avalon, Igraine was a sea princess who had a daughter with a man from the Sacred Clan. Man from the Sacred Clan, that's not right. The daughter being Morgan. So Morgan was taken to the House of Virgins to serve as a sea princess. They all left the islands after a young priest warned them of an upcoming catastrophe. And then the islands were drowned by massive waves caused by this volcano that exploded. It was a whole thing. She's been a recurring villain to the Avengers in the comics for a while now. And when the Dark Avengers were formed by Norman Osborn, Morgan was their first enemy to face off against. Talk about setting that scary bar nice and high. She's a powerful spellcaster, one of those spells being reality warping by using the Norn stones. She travels through time, and one of the craziest trips back through time was in Dark Avengers when she went back to take care of Doom when he was just a wee child. But she didn't take care of him. She actually instead wanted him to know why she planned on taking care of him, which is like the most villain thing ever. She's like, hey buddy, yeah, I was gonna kill you, but I didn't. Okay, bye. So crazy. Yeah, time travel is easy for her. She can even manipulate the rules of time travel to repeatedly undo her own death and return unharmed to that same battle, which has got to be confusing to whoever she's fighting. What? What? Dude, this sucks. That's amazing. And weakness, also, you guessed it, iron. Absolutely. Number 3, Amatsu Mikaboshi. Amatsu Mikaboshi is based on a demon from Japanese mythology. He was trying to take over Olympus and Asgard, but he got locked up for his crimes, of course. An incarnation of the primordial darkness and chaos that existed before the universe. They're also referred to as the Chaos King, which has a nice little ring to it. That sounds good. During the secret invasion event, the Earth's heroes and villains set up this God Squad, led by Hercules, to act as a defense. Now, the God Squad sounds cool when you say it out loud, but they weren't necessarily on board with this evil shapeshifter just lurking about the team, you know? He could transform into anything. He's an expert shapeshifter, and his go-to appearance just happens to be a massive creature from darkness itself. I'm taking on this form because, you know, I'm trying to be a little nerdy boy. So it's safe to say that this one was born into the hashtag villain life. Number 2, Amora the Enchantress. She made her first debut in Journey into Mystery issue 103, and her relationship with Thor is, honestly, I'd love to see this in live action. It's kind of crazy. So half the time she wants to get with Thor, you know, and then the other half she wants to take him out. So most Asgardians are based off of a real life myth, like Thor of course, but she's fresh from the mind of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And she has a pretty sweet life. She's got multiple mansions throughout the 9 realms, and she can make gold and diamonds with her tears. So even if she's sad, she's still hashtag rich. So she's really good at seducing people. For example, Scourge, she would seduce him into helping her with her evil plans, and he was so into her that he wouldn't even care. He would just do anything to help her out. He was kind of whipped. Meanwhile, Amora wouldn't follow through with her side of the deal. She would just play hard and get it. She's like, yeah, you want that? Go do something. Go cover my shift. I'm not doing that for you. Bye. So she messes with your mind and your heart. That's a villain. Now in the comics, she was sent by Odin to take out Jane Foster because the whole loving on different worlds thing, that's kind of a no-no. Long distance relationships, we don't do that. So she tried to attack Jane and Thor intervened. And then she was banished to Earth by Odin. What a story, like what a resume. Where she then joined the Masters of Evil, of course. Her tool is seduction. Just one kiss mwah, is all it takes to make you in her control. She doesn't have too much experience with hand-to-hand combat because, well, she just gets other dudes like Scourge to fight for her, which is not a bad idea at all. I'm kind of loving that system, not gonna lie to you. And finally, number 1, Scarlet Witch. No more mutants. We were all counting down the days until the end of WandaVision because we could finally, perhaps maybe see an evil Wanda Maximoff. And we did, and it was so good. She's the daughter of Magneto and the twin brother of Quicksilver, aka Pietro Maximoff. Now, she was on her father's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but at one point she did join the Avengers. So she's a little flippy-floppy. She's one of the biggest Marvel characters, and during the events of M-Day, she spoke those 3 words, and just like that, a mass amount of mutants were depowered, or worse, that large number being 986,618, only leaving a couple hundred depressed mutants left. Now, the end of episode 8 of WandaVision had fans pretty jazzed. Agatha Harkness refers to Wanda as the Scarlet Witch, finally! But, she also references this chaos magic. What is this chaos magic? Well, Wanda in the comics got her powers through the old gods of chaos. So this god came to her the day she was born, not really a blessing, but rather it was done so that this chaos god could add to Wanda's powers and then later use her as a vessel that he could one day possess when she was fully grown. And we see this take place in Avengers issue 186. Now with WandaVision's ending, it seems like the MCU is going to start kind of leaning into this villain role for Wanda, because last we saw her she was studying the Book of the Damned. There was ominous music, she was floating, doing some witch stuff. I'm excited for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'd love to see Elizabeth Olsen go dark. She's an amazing actor. Holy.
Number 10. Nico Minoru. Nico Minoru was initially introduced to us at Marvel Comics as a member of the Runaways. Nico ran away from home after learning that her parents were basically murdered and possibly cultists. Later, she would discover that they were dark wizards and that Nico had inherited some of their magical abilities. Or at least their knack for magic. Her mother drove a staff through Nico's chest, which was basically how she came to possess the Staff of One, which is often what Nico uses to cast her magic. Much of Nico's power comes from blood magic, and we've seen that the more blood Nico spills, the more powerful she can become. Even without the Staff of One, she has become adept at casting some spells. Nico's magic initially was also shown to be quite unpredictable when it came to the effects of the spells she cast. I believe originally she could, I don't know if this is still a thing, but originally, anytime she cast a spell, she could only cast it once. So if she ever said that thing again, it would do something totally different. Number 9. Amethyst. Technically, Amethyst is believed to be one of the most powerful magic users in the DC universe, due to the fact that she is descended from a Lord of Order. Well, at least initially. In the current continuity, Amethyst doesn't have quite the same power levels because she doesn't have quite the same origin. Here she also gets power from her lineage though, which has grown over time as others in her family have passed on their power to her, although I don't think she's descended from a Lord of Order anymore in the current continuity. Similar to a Green Lantern, Amethyst can use her power to create constructs, but instead of them being light constructs, she can make crystal constructs. She can also use hard light to conjure crystals, which themselves are sharp enough to be used as weapons on their own. Amethyst can also imbue crystals with specific powers, making her power set a strangely diverse one as well.
Number 8. Shazam. Billy Batson is just a wee lad who, thanks to the wizard Shazam, could transform into a powerful magical hero named Captain Marvel, or if you prefer, just Shazam. By saying his magic word, he gained an array of attributes including the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. Shazam has proven himself to be nearly as strong as Superman, but I think it's easy to forget that a lot of his real power comes in the form of his magical abilities. So sure, he's powerful, but that doesn't play into Hogwarts houses as much. There are powerful witches and wizards in every corner. After talking it over, I think Billy could teeter between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. No one can argue that Billy isn't courageous, brave, adventurous, daring, and loyal, all traits of a Gryffindor, but at the same time, his Marvel family means a lot to him. Teamwork has been important to his character many times in the past. He's incredibly kind, but I wouldn't say he's particularly hard-working. Then again, Hufflepuffs are also sometimes known for being somewhat kinda lazy at times. No offense, sorry. If I had to pick one though, considering the lion's share of his traits, and I mean color scheme, I know just what to do with you, Gryffindor!
Number 7. Khalid Nazur. Khalid Nazur, aka Dr. Fate, or at least a Dr. Fate if you will. Khalid is one of the newest to take up the mantle of Dr. Fate, and honestly I kinda love him as a younger, fresher take on this character. I would say based on all of his actions that I've seen whilst reading him in Justice League Dark, I would probably put him in Gryffindor House, which I feel like might be a common one on this list to be honest, because I mean, you know, most superheroes are brave, right? Like obviously Shazam was gonna be a a Gryffindor. But this isn't just me saying, Khalid's a hero, so I bet he's a Gryffindor. I just feel like when it comes to his approach to heroics, he really is the one to do the unthinkable thing in order to get that job done. I was considering that because he's willing to do whatever it takes as a hero, he might even be Slytherin. Maybe I just want everyone to be a Slytherin. It's a fine line we walk between these two houses though. But in the end, I think Gryffindor House is most where he belongs. And we see this early on with his appearance in Justice League Dark, where we learned that one night he followed his great uncle Kent Nelson, who at the time was possessed by Naboo, the Lord of Order, and basically ended up sneaking into a pretty important meeting, a gathering of the Lords of Order. For this at the time, Khalid would be imprisoned in a vase, because the Lords of Order, didn't want their plans getting out. Khalid, with the help of Man-Bat, would escape and ultimately be able to warn the Justice League Dark of things to come, and also help to free his great uncle Kent Nelson from the Helm of Fate, through which Naboo had basically possessed him at that point, using his avatar in essence as a puppet.
Number 6. Raven. The daughter of the demon Trigon, it was Trigon's intention that Raven reshape the Underrealms in his image. Fortunately, she was taught by the monks of Azarath to overcome her father's influence, and she became a hero instead of an interdimensional evil demon spawn. Whenever she loses control of her emotions, she becomes vulnerable to Trigon's influence. This led to her destroying Azarath before being killed by the Teen Titans. She has flip-flopped back and forth a lot over the years, but usually manages to overcome her father's influence and help the heroes. Due to her goth kid status and relationship to demons, it would be easy to assume that she was a Slytherin, but although she certainly has cunning and determination, she tends not to push herself into leadership positions if she doesn't have to, and her unwillingness to take over the Underrealms shows that she has tempered her ambition. You might assume that because of her name, Raven would be in Ravenclaw, and though she could fit in there, I actually think there's a different house she is even better suited for. It is through hard work, dedication, and patience that she has learned to overcome her father's influence, and though she doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve, she is actually very kind and loyal to her fellow Titans, even over her own family. It's her defining trait. Shocking, I know, but Raven's a Hufflepuff.
Number 5. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is an interesting one to talk about. The thing with his character is that he's kind of all over the place. Being the Sorcerer Supreme of the Marvel Universe, he needs to be so incredibly multifaceted, and he actually delivers on that. I almost want to just say that Stephen would be the headmaster of Hogwarts, but that feels like cheating, so let's break it down. What houses would the good doctor not be a part of? What about Hufflepuff? Of all the houses, this is the one where I think Stephen lacks the most. While he is hardworking for sure, I absolutely do not believe him to be trustworthy. He doesn't have the greatest moral compass, and he's not particularly as likable as most Hufflepuffs tend to be. While Stephen is brave, daring, and has a great deal of nerve, not to mention sometimes acts without thinking, I don't believe that Stephen possesses the chivalry that the Lions are so well known for, and so I would not place him in Gryffindor. Slytherin would be my runner-up for Stephen. While it has produced the most dark wizards, this misunderstood house has also produced some of the greatest wizards, including Merlin himself. Ambitious, sharp-witted, and shrewd, he is usually one step ahead like a Slytherin, and his reputation is also kind of a big deal for him, or at least it was before he was humbled. I think in his past he may have been able to fall into the Slytherin house, but since dedicating himself to learning almost all there is to learn about magic, becoming Sorcerer Supreme, and putting the importance of our reality over his own ambitions, not to mention his analytical thinking, overachieving, and his tendency to seclude himself away, I personally have to place Doctor Strange in Ravenclaw.
Number 4. Zatanna. Zatanna was an easy one for me to sort for some reason, although to be honest, she could fit well in almost any house I think if we think about it. Zatanna has a lot going on for her as a character. She is often determined, brave, and knowledgeable in various areas of magic, but at the same time, she's also a team player, makes friends easily, and overall is often empathetic to those around her or those in need. Now that's not to say that, she always plays nice, or that, she doesn't make mistakes. She definitely does, but at the same time I feel the fact that most characters are friends with Zatanna, and the fact that I feel like she has a strong moral compass, which is usually informed by her connection to others, that we have to call out across the Great Hall for Zatanna, Hufflepuff.
Number 3. Shaman. Dr. Michael Two Young Men was Canada's most brilliant surgeon before losing his wife in surgery caused him to recommit his life to learning the mystic ways of his people. He eventually became Shaman, one of the original members of Alpha Flight. The source of his powers is a mystical pouch, which contains anything he needs at any given time to perform his spells. He has been shown to be able to control plants as well as fire and the weather. He can also convene with spirits and animals, as well as project his astral form in a similar way to Doctor Strange. Shaman is incredibly smart, which makes him use these powers in really clever ways, making them even more effective. For example, when Guardian was almost murdered in X-Men Unlimited number 45, Shaman had the spirits of the air keep feeding air to Guardian's brain so that they could preserve his brain functions until they could get him proper medical attention. His character is defined by his wisdom and cleverness, and his commitment to excel as both a surgeon and a superhero shows great intellectual ability, and effectively using his magic pouch demands high degrees of creativity, making Shaman a perfect fit for Ravenclaw.
Number 2, John Constantine, or Constantine, or whatever the hell you want to say. John can wield magic for sure, through years and years of learning, training, traveling, but he doesn't have any kind of magical affinity as such, or any kind of beneficial magical family heritage. John relies on actual magic as a very last resort. The fact that he is practically self-made and has the personal gumption to learn all he has would initially make me think Ravenclaw for this character. But one of the biggest things about John is that using magic comes at a cost, and he knows this. So, what Constantine prefers is trickery, lies, deceit, traps, his wits, weapons, artifacts, backup, and calling in favors. John smokes, he drinks, he's in his middle ages, and he ain't in the greatest of health, but at the same time, he has been able to trick, outsmart, or overpower superheroes, gods, demons, and angels. And he's always smarmy as hell about it. He is certainly ambitious, shrewd, and the kind of person who is always one, if not multiple steps ahead. He has a dark sense of humor, but I don't believe he thinks reputation is that important, and he certainly doesn't care about his appearances so much. It's a bit of a hard choice, and while I am clearly and almost completely leaning towards Slytherin for this character, I do think he could very easily be a secret Gryffindor, to be completely honest. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below though. So let me know.
Number 1, magic. This was another no-brainer for me. I mean, I feel like this character has such an energy about her. Magic walks into the room and her presence just fills it. And this is easy to pick up on even across the pages of a comic. When I'm reading comics aloud, my partner actually often does Magic's voice, and the attitude that he puts in there has become synonymous with the default sass that I just imagine Magic always has. It's an attitude, an air, and I love it. Magic is confident, often no nonsense, knows what she wants, and is not afraid to take it. It is for her confidence, and often, as Dumbledore would say, her disregard for the rules, that I'm certain Ilyana Rasputin also belongs with me in Hogwarts Slytherin House. Number 10, Man-Bat. Despite once being a villain in addition to a man who is primarily known for his scientific pursuits and brilliance, Man-Bat during his time with the Justice League Dark Branch actually got some exposure to magic and was able to open up his sensitivity to it. At one point he shows that he has learned enough to do what even other more experienced magic users struggled to do. Free the new Dr. Fate, Khalid Nazur, grandnephew of Kent Nelson, from a vase that the current Dr. Fate, Naboo, had trapped him in while possessing the body of his great Uncle Nelson. Number 9, Tracy 13. Tracy 13 formerly went by the alias of Girl 13 in the New Earth continuity. She is the only daughter of professional skeptic of mysticism Dr. Terrence 13 and his wife, sorceress Mei Huai Lan 13. Tracy uses a unique brand of magic known as urban magic, which allows her to tap into the knowledge, energy, and spirit of cities, fueling her own power with it. She gets much of her knowledge and talent in magic from her mother, who died tragically in a magic-related incident, which broke her father's heart. Tracy is also the founder of the Sisterhood of the Sleight of Hand, a group of witches who work to aid mere mortal heroes. Tracy also possesses knowledge of the occult, which comes from likely both her mother and her father, as well as her own pursuits of knowledge. Number 8, Wong. Wong is having a big glow up right now when it comes to his power levels, and I am super here for it. I am here for Phase Wong from the MCU. Let's go. Wong was introduced to us in the MCU as the right-hand man to Doctor Strange, and in the comics, he serves a similar purpose. But more recently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where Wong is played by Benedict Wong, we learned that the character actually earned the title of Sorcerer Supreme himself, being chosen after Doctor Strange was blipped out of existence during the events of Avengers Infinity War. We can expect to see Wong become even more of a powerhouse in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, as his cameos in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Spider-Man No Way Home seem to imply. Although he takes a back seat in No Way Home, he's also the one who basically warns Strange against using the spell which basically cracks open the multiverse. Oops. Steven, you should have listened to Wong. Number 7. Enchantress. Enchantress is often bested by her rivals, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't put up an immense fight. And it doesn't mean that she hasn't come close to winning before either. Many times Enchantress has plotted or schemed to take over the world or acquire for herself immense levels of power, and has come dangerously close to winning the day before. Amora the Enchantress is in essence a goddess of Asgard. Her powers allow her to seduce almost any and all men, as even her beauty has the magical ability to enchant those who gaze upon her, compelling them to do her bidding. Enchantress is also not your typical squishy magic user either. Being Asgardian, she's also exceptionally strong and durable, meaning that even in a physical fight, you probably would not want to face her. I mean, I don't think she's like a pro fighter, but she still could just like flick you and you'd probably be like, ah, like fly across the room or something. Asgard strength. Number 6. Scarlet Witch. One of the most powerful magic users out there when it comes to the Marvel Universe has to be Scarlet Witch. We've literally seen Wanda rewrite reality and history, altering the entire world with her will. Initially, Wanda's magic was tied to her mutant powers, which was seen as sort of like bad luck magic, where almost every time she tried to use her magic, things would just like go haywire, and generally her magic would either backfire or like cause some unintended tragedy. While Scarlet Witch is no longer considered a mutant in canon anymore, sadly, this effect has still stuck around, even with her magic now just being magic and no longer mutant related, no longer really like hex magic. This is probably also because Wanda's magic is tied to the chaos god Chthon, who has also tried and temporarily succeeded in possessing Wanda in the past. Poor Wanda, she just can't catch a break. Number 5. Dr. Voodoo. Dr. Voodoo is Jericho Drumm, formerly known as Brother Voodoo. He has also been Sorcerer Supreme before, hence the name change. He took over when Doctor Strange was deemed to be unfit to serve as Sorcerer Supreme. Voodoo is known for his immense knowledge of magic. He specializes in communing with the dead and can also commune with gods, animals, and manipulate the elements, minds, and even time. His vast knowledge makes him a fairly well-rounded magic user besides, having knowledge of various different forms of magic including scrying, sealing or barricading off dimensions or realms, spellcasting, and meditative abilities which allow him to observe things others might miss and actually grant him immense control over his own body as well. Jericho demonstrates a level of knowledge, discipline, and skill that other magic users dream of having. Number 4. Dormammu. One of the most powerful magic villains in the Marvel Universe is definitely Dormammu, especially if you end up going to the Dark Dimension to face him. Here Dormammu reigns supreme, and so his power is considered basically limitless. Of course, take him out of the Dark Dimension and he isn't quite so powerful. Being away from the Dark Dimension can actually lower his power levels to put him on the same level as other magic users that exist on Earth 616. Dormammu himself is composed of mystical energy. He's basically like a big ball of flaming magic. He is virtually immortal, while in his dimension can manipulate matter as he sees fit, can control the elements, and can change shape and size at will. Which also means physically, once again, not a person you'd probably want to fight. Because he could be like, now I'm a giant Dormammu, I squish you. Number 3. Wiccan. Wiccan is Billy Kaplan, the reincarnated son of Scarlet Witch. As such, his powers are very similar to his spiritual mother. He can basically warp and alter reality, although he needs to speak words typically in order to do so. At least, he did initially. At times, we've seen him outgrow this requirement, simply willing things to happen without needing to even speak his desires. There have also been alternate realities and timelines where we've seen Billy ascend to the title of Sorcerer Supreme, and we've seen his powers boosted to godlike levels before, when he has become the cosmic omnipotent being known as the Demiurge. Number 2. Clea. Another exceptionally powerful magic user is Clea. Clea is the wife of Doctor Strange, who ends up replacing him after he dies as Sorcerer Supreme. As of now, I believe she is the Sorcerer Supreme in the 616 main reality in Marvel Comics, possibly foreshadowing something similar that might come to pass in Multiverse of Madness. Who knows? Will Clea be in there? We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Clea hasn't been as hyped in the comics, but is finally getting her day in the sun. She is actually half Faultine and half Dark Dimensional mortal, being related to Dormammu herself. Clea is actually Dormammu's niece, as her mother, Umar, is Dormammu's sister. Her father was the former ruler of the Dark Dimension as well, so you could say that power and magic are in Clea's blood. Also, she definitely deserves to just be boosted, because I feel like Clea's been around for forever. Never really talked about how powerful she is. Number 1. Doctor Strange. Probably one of the most powerful magical heroes in the Marvel Universe, we of course need to talk about Doctor Strange. Who is Doctor Strange? He is the Sorcerer Supreme in the Marvel Universe. Or was the Sorcerer Supreme anyways. Recently he died, but this is comics, so I'm sure I'll be back at it eventually. In fact, even though he died during Death of Doctor Strange, it was revealed that Stephen had a failsafe to help in solving his own murder. A past version of Strange was summoned to get sleuthing, and through this, Stephen was even able to return to the land of the living. Temporarily at least. Ultimately, Doctor Strange knew that staying there would come with too great a cost if he were to actually remain alive and fight against the inevitability of death. So he only came back temporarily to defeat some baddies, and then he decided to fade away once more. He was like, sorry Clea, gotta go back to being dead. You're the Sorcerer Supreme now, bye!
Kicking off the list at number 10, Mojo. Making his first debut in Longshot issue 3, Mojo is known for using Earth as forms of TV entertainment for the universe. It's like the Bachelor in Paradise, but it's us. And we're like, hey, what's going on? Are we dead? And his power increases the more viewers he gets for this interdimensional TV show. So like and subscribe his stuff as well as ours. We want to keep both things thriving. So in 1992, the issue titled Mojo's Media Madness had this wild storyline where Mojo gets Rogue, Cyclops, Beast, and Wolverine to think that they are characters from The Wizard of Oz. That goes down in X-Men issue 10. It's so wild. It's kind of funny, but mostly terrifying. He's part of a race of spineless beings from a planet named after him called Mojo World. Of course, inside a pocket dimension called the Mojo-verse. We get it, dude. It's all about you, okay? Cool. So this race of spineless beings were slowly going crazy over time because TV signals from another space-time continuum were scattered into their timelines. He's a powerful sorcerer, obviously because of his list, and we're not exactly sure just how far his magic can go. To be honest, I was leaning a bit towards Mojo being the mastermind behind the WandaVision plot. I thought he had something to do with it, but thankfully it was Wanda and her powers were just finally coming through, all those crazy powers, which I'll be talking about a little bit later in this list. And before we go to number 9, if you guys could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. It's this one, not that one, so make sure you hit that one right there because it helps out our channel so much. You guys are the best. Now back to some more evil magic users. Number 9, Spiral. Rita Wayward made her debut in Longshot issue 1. She's actually a loyal servant to that spineless whack job that I just mentioned. But it didn't start that way, of course not. Ricochet Rita was once a professional stunt performer. She became friends with a guy named Longshot who was from that Mojo-verse that I just talked about. She was attacked by this insane version of herself called Spiral that was from the future. So after that was taken care of, she decided to follow her heart and go back to that dimension with Longshot. And when they got there, Longshot couldn't pull through and they both were captured by Mojo. What a dick. See, Longshot's mind was wiped for getting Rita, which is so sad already, but for Rita, it just got worse. Mojo got his scientist Ares to modify her mentally and physically. So now she's got 6 arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry editors, you can add those or you can't add them. I know it's a lot of work. So now she has 6 arms. She turned her hair gray and now she could see other dimensions. That's crazy, quite the upgrade. She was a twisted little version of Mojo and she got trained in the dark arts of magic and body modification. And as you may have guessed, that future version of her was just that. Mojo sent her new and improved self to go back in time and attack her past self.
Number 8, Jennifer Kale. Jennifer Kale became a magical hero and ally to the Man-Thing at a young age. She was a teenager who was interested in magic and using a mystical tome she'd found while visiting her grandfather, accidentally summoned a demon, not knowing that the demon would not be under her control. The Man-Thing saved her and it was revealed later on that he and she had a psychic link. Dakeem the Enchanter eventually revealed himself to both Jennifer and Man-Thing and had them both prove they were worthy before taking on Jennifer as his apprentice. He had been a student of Zared-Na before him, a powerful sorceress who believed that demons from the realm of Somnus would someday threaten the fate of the earth, attempting to invade. Dakeem gave Jennifer the raiments of a priestess of Zared-Na and helped her to recover the tome of Zared-Na from another dimension, helping to protect the earth against a demon invasion. Jennifer is also an ally of Howard the Duck and over the years has become a highly skilled magic user.
Number 7, Day Tripper. Born with the name Jemaine Zardos, she is the daughter of a powerful Romani sorceress and grew up in the circus with her brother. His name was Stefan, and he suffered bouts of homicidal madness occasionally. The family adopted Nightcrawler in his youth, and he made a pact with his crazy brother that he would kill him if he ever became too violent. This eventually does happen, and it really blows up the whole family, with the mother Margali seeking revenge for Nightcrawler for killing her son. But anyway, back to Day Tripper. She was first introduced as Amanda Sefton, a flight attendant who dates Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler. When Kurt joined the Excalibur team, he asked her to also join, as they often go up against magical opponents. She once attempted to become Doctor Strange's disciple, and also helped to retrieve Captain Britain from the Time Stream. She has also aided the X-Men in battle against the Hellfire Club. She is a sorceress who follows the path of the Winding Way, and she is quite powerful, capable of teleportation, casting illusions, and hypnotism, as well as shapeshifting.
Hellstorm. Hellstorm or Hellstrom? Well, actually, if we are talking about the heroic persona of Damon, then in most cases it's going to be Hellstorm. Hellstrom is Damon's legal last name as the son of the devil who came to Earth for a time to basically sire children. Hellstorm, fun fact, used to be married to Hellcat, Patsy Walker. I just like that they both have Hell in their main hero mantle. It's pretty great. Also, that relationship ended terribly though. Terribly. Damon Hellstrom, being the son of the devil, is also the heir to Hell, although he spent a lot of time not wanting to accept this responsibility as he often wrestled with the evil within him. Damon actually was originally planning on becoming a priest before he learned of his true heritage via his mother's diary. He has not only been an adventurer and a superhero fighting alongside the Defenders, but has also been an occult detective and an exorcist as well, seeking to better understand his heritage while also actively fighting against it and his father's will.
Number 5. Sister Grimm. Sister Grimm was part of a team known as the Runaways that had its run in 2003. The Runaways were a group of teens who discovered their parents were part of a crime ring known as the Pride that planned to destroy and rebuild the Earth. The Runaways fight to stop them, and one of them is Sister Grimm, who inherited powers and technology from her parents. At one point, she re-encounters her parents after running away, and her mother points her staff at her chest, which becomes absorbed by her body. This is actually her main weapon, the Staff of One, and it is only released from her body when she bleeds. She has magical aptitude in her blood, but not the usual formal training. However, after her encounter with the Witchbreaker, her power improves, and she can now levitate, teleport using portals, and even fly. She can also cast spells that change her surroundings, like transforming the inside of a building. She is part of Strange Academy, the professor of creative spellcasting. This is a perfect role for her, as part of the way her staff works is she can never use the same spell twice. If she casts a spell she's already used a second time, not only will it not work, but it may even have an unintended effect.
Number 4. Dr. Voodoo. Brother Voodoo, aka Jericho Drumm, was considered skilled and disciplined enough to actually become the new Sorcerer Supreme, becoming Dr. Voodoo. Big, exciting level up for Jericho. Initially, Jericho never wanted the responsibility of becoming a Hungan, but after the death of his brother, Daniel, swore to him that he would train in the mystical arts and take his place, seeking to avenge his brother's death. Voodoo carries his brother's spirit with him, which helps to bolster his power. He was chosen later on to become Sorcerer Supreme by Agamotto. The Eye of Agamotto left Stephen Strange and instead sought out his replacement, choosing Brother Voodoo because he was considered pure of heart and at the time a much better candidate. Doctor Strange was basically doing some super dark things at the time, although he did have his reasons. Jericho is a skilled magic user, capable of manipulating the elements and mystical creatures. He's also capable of hypnosis, flight, and teleportation. And he's also a trained psychologist. Bonus.
Number 3. Man-Thing. Man-Thing is a tragic dude. He was a biochemistry professor named Ted Sallis, working on Project Sulfur, which aimed to allow soldiers to survive biochemical weapons. It was developed into serum SO2, and it worked, but had the unfortunate side effect of turning its users into monsters. He once worked alongside Dr. Kurt Connors and tried to improve his serum into a super soldier serum, like the one used on Captain America. His wife becomes bitter after being neglected for so long while he's focused on his work, and she eventually sells him out to greedy AIM agents seeking to steal his technology. As he's escaping from their ambush, he injects himself with the only existing sample of the serum, right before his car crashes into the swamp. The magical energies of the swamp and the serum combine to transform him into a hideous 7-foot swamp monster. Man-Thing gets into some crazy mystical stuff, helping Doctor Strange with fixing the shattered nexus of all realities. He is basically vegetable matter formed with mystical energy and swamp mutations all wrapped up in a lovely package. As the guardian of the nexus of all realities, he has some serious mystical responsibilities. He is also very powerful, with his abilities including regeneration, teleportation, and even reality displacement. Also, his porous form is resistant to many forms of attacks, as fists or bullets just pass right through him.
Number 2. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is one of the most powerful magic users we have in Marvel, although the results of her magic can sometimes be unpredictable. Like during the Empire event when she accidentally created a ton of mutant zombies in her attempt to properly resurrect all the lives lost in the Genosha Mutant Massacre. Still, Scarlet Witch is powerful enough that she has been considered as a candidate for Sorcerer Supreme. She can use her powers to manipulate time, reality, and probability, as well as project energy, create force fields, cast spells, heal, create magical weapons, enhance her own physical prowess, and teleport. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. That's like stuff I am just saying and you could speed me up saying it and then like make it scroll because it's so much stuff. The problem is simply that things don't always turn out the way Wanda had envisioned, and her mental state often affects her actions, making her appear sometimes even villainous, when that is generally the furthest thing that Wanda wants, to alienate herself. She is often just a character seeking love and acceptance who struggles to find where she belongs and sometimes to find her own sense of independence and confidence.
And here we are at number 1, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange was a brilliant but arrogant neurosurgeon who mangled his hands in a car accident and became seriously distraught. When modern medicine failed him, he went on a journey leading him to Tibet, where he trained with the Ancient One, healing his hands, learning about magic, and eventually rising to the rank of Master of the Mystic Arts. He is the Sorcerer Supreme for the Marvel Prime Universe, and Strange has a really storied past, having been affiliated with many superhero teams and taking part in some incredible storylines throughout his history. I really love how Doctor Strange goes from arrogant doctor who only cares about money to a broken man who literally sells all his possessions to travel to the East, later discovering not only is magic real, but that he can control it. As the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange is immensely powerful, and he also has a whole collection of powerful artifacts at his disposal. He is an expert in the Black Priest's ability to use language to distort reality, using the power of the words to create energy blasts, organic disintegration, and even paralysis. He can channel the extra-dimensional energy of mystical beings to empower his spells. And it's been said that Doctor Strange is as powerful as the god he invokes.
Number 10. Magic. Ilyana Rasputin is a mutant and the sister of the famous X-Man Colossus. She was born in Russia, but when she was very young, she was kidnapped by a being known as Belasco and taken to Limbo, also known as Other Place. It was there she not only learned how to control her own abilities, but was taught even more during her time there. Eventually, she became powerful enough to escape, although when she returned, she found out that only a few seconds had gone by on Earth, whereas for her, it had been years. She then went on to join the New Mutants and took on the name Magic. Her powers include stepping discs, which allow her to teleport great distances and through time. She also is a master of sorcery because of her time in Limbo. Number 9. Raven. Rachel Roth is the daughter of the demon Trigon and human Angelo Roth. For most of her life, Raven had no idea who her father was. She was raised in an alternate dimension called Azarath by the goddess Azar. It was there where she learned to control and harness her abilities and emotions. It was Azar's hope that this would help Raven fend off her father's influence once, she eventually returned to Earth. Eventually, Azar passed away and Raven learned of her father, who, of course, went after her. Raven left Azarath and went to Earth. She wanted to recruit other heroes to help her in her fight against her father. Unfortunately, she was rejected by the Justice League, which forced her to create her own team, the Teen Titans. They managed to stop Trigon, but obviously not for good. Bad guys never stay gone forever. He eventually did end up coming back again. Raven is very powerful. She's able to cast magic spells, fly, teleport, use telekinesis, astral projection, and darkness manipulation.
Coming in at number 8, we've got Black Adam. Born 5,000 years ago as a slave in the country of Kahndaq, Adam was gifted the powers of all the gods, similarly to how Billy Batson would be several millennia later. However, after freeing himself and the other slaves, Adam wasn't content to lead a life of peace, instead choosing to become the violent leader of Kahndaq and ruling with an iron fist. Horrified at the destruction being caused by his powers, the wizard Shazam within the Rock of Eternity sealed away Black Adam for thousands of years, choosing to wait for a more suitable heir to all of his power. Of course, once Black Adam was unleashed once again by the research of Dr. Sivana, he was dead set on getting back the position of power that he believes Billy Batson has unjustly stolen from him. Coming in at number 7, we have the Enchantress. And to be more specific, we're talking about the Enchantress known as June Moon from the DC universe, and not the Enchantress from Marvel's Thor comics, although honestly, either Enchantress could probably earn a spot on this list. In this case, the Enchantress is a dark magical personality that was awakened within the young artist June Moon, transforming her physically into a magic-wielding sorceress whenever she chooses to call upon its power, or during moments of great emotional turmoil. And while June herself likely doesn't count as a supervillain given that she generally wants what's best for everyone, but the actual Enchantress entity, she's a being of pure destruction and only June's strength of will is capable of holding her back. Coming in at number 6, we have the Marvel entity known as Nightmare. One of the Fear Lords, a group of demons that gain their power from human suffering and misery, Nightmare has been a longtime villain of Doctor Strange and any other Marvel hero that dares to wander into the magical realm of sleep. Capable of bringing any sleeping person's astral form into his Nightmare realm, Nightmare is one of the few Marvel villains that relies almost entirely on mental manipulation and tricks, as he's much weaker if he's ever brought into the physical waking world. Even with this limitation, Nightmare is a ruthless foe, and is always searching for another way to bring everyone in existence into his dark world of fitful slumber. Coming in at number 5, we've got another Marvel demon with the infamous Mephisto. Perhaps best known for being behind the One More Day event that saw Spider-Man's marriage with Mary Jane Parker get wiped from the timeline, Mephisto is one of the closest things that the Marvel Universe has to a Satan character, and uses humanity's belief in a devil to inspire even more fear in his powers. Extremely powerful and considered a Class 2 demon, Mephisto often finds himself in conflict with some of the more magical or even cosmic heroes of this universe, although his preferred method of work is manipulating events from afar. And with Mephisto having recently become a major player in Spider-Man lore again, as the true reasoning behind his obsession with Peter Parker's marriage is slowly being revealed, we definitely haven't seen the last of the Marvel Universe's devil. Coming in at number 4, we have Baron Mordo. A student of the mystical Ancient One for decades before Dr. Stephen Strange even injured his hands, Baron Karl Mordo was long suspected by the Ancient One as having an impure heart, but nevertheless was taught magic as a potential next Sorcerer Supreme. However, Mordo's ambitions for power were too great, and he was banished from the Ancient One's sanctum for contacting the dread entity called Dormammu. With Dr. Stephen Strange being trained in his place as a Sorcerer Supreme, specifically to stop any future plans of Mordo's, the Baron embraced his role as a magical villain and has been a persistent enemy of Strange and his allies ever since. Coming in at number 3, we have the demonic Trigon the Terrible. Hailing from the dimension of Azarath, Trigon is best known as being the evil father of Raven, one of the key members of the Teen Titans. Born from the darkness shed from humanity inside his own dimension, Trigon sought to have a child tethering him to the earthly realm, and thus seduced Raven's mother while in an angelic disguise. With Raven having become a hero determined to use her magic to fight against her father's wishes, Trigon has become one of the largest threats the Teen Titans, or even the rest of the DC universe, have ever faced, and in recent years has been building up a new army from within his hellish dimension. Coming in at number 2, we have the Lord of Dread himself, Dormammu. The true nemesis of Dr. Stephen Strange, Dormammu is literally millions of years old, and born from a realm realm of pure magic before eventually conquering the vast expanse known as the Dark Dimension, a reality without time, and combined his own magic with that of the entire Dark Realm. With the Baron Mordo acting as his earthly disciple, Dormammu has long wished to conquer Earth and expand his domain, with only the efforts of Doctor Strange having been successful in holding him back so far. With his magic even being powerful enough to alter the spells of Odin the Allfather, Dormammu is one of the most powerful magical beings in the entire Marvel multiverse. But hold that thought though, because finally coming in at our top spot, we have the infamous Victor Von Doom. Now, when you think of Doctor Doom, you might think of his more scientist-esque depictions in the movies, or his many uses of technology in the comics as the leader of Latveria, such as his army of Doombots. However, the true danger of Doctor Doom is in his utilization of both technology and magic together, as the Fantastic Four's nemesis has long been a powerful sorcerer alongside his technical genius and power as the leader of a country. Introduced to the mystical arts by his own mother, Doom has proven to be so adept at magic that he was even briefly considered as a potential Sorcerer Supreme. However, given that he often uses his magic for kinda evil purposes, it's probably for the best if Doctor Doom just remains a doctor for the time being.
Number 10. Etrigan. How to explain the origin of Etrigan in a way that won't get this video banned? Well, when a mommy demon and a daddy demon are at war and want to broker a peace, they will copulate on top of the bodies of their fallen soldiers and make a demon baby. Yes, I am totally serious. The demon Etrigan was first summoned to Earth by the wizard Merlin in an attempt to save Camelot from destruction. When that failed, Merlin bound Etrigan to Jason Blood. The two have been a force for good and evil over the years, but Etrigan's love of causing pain is often barely kept in check by Jason. For example, in Action Comics number 637, Jason and Etrigan are hired to perform an exorcism on a child. They succeeded, but Etrigan immediately decided the kid looked like dinner, and was only dissuaded when Jason threatened to end his own life. Also, Etrigan only speaks in rhyme, which makes everything he does have an even creepier edge to it, like a evil Lin-Manuel Miranda. The demon Etrigan is ambitious to conquer and is nothing if not proud and resourceful. He has all of the worst Slytherin tendencies that made them such a nightmare in the books. But what about Jason Blood? For much of his life, he would also be a vicious monster until his mind was wiped and he became a good man saddled with a demon he can barely keep in check. He was rid of Etrigan at one point, but took the demon back in a selfless act of bravery to save the world. I think Jason is a Gryffindor, and in another fun Harry Potter link, Jason actually wields the DC Comics version of the Philosopher's Stone. Oh, sorry, the Sorcerer's Stone!
Number 9. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is one of my all-time favorite magic users in comics. I absolutely love Wanda. She's a complex character who's been through hell and back. She's been a hero, a villain, and pretty much everything in between at this point. But what would the Sorting Hat see were to be placed upon her head and made to sort her into the most fitting Hogwarts house? I think when it comes to Wanda, I've always seen her as someone who is extremely powerful, more powerful even than she sometimes gives herself credit for. She is determined, refusing to often back down, even when the odds are stacked against her. She's resourceful, often managing to do things deemed impossible even by other magic users who some might consider more knowledgeable even than her. For all of these reasons and more, I could see Wanda fitting right in with me and House Slytherin. And I don't just say that as both a Slytherin myself and a Scarlet Witch fan, because obviously I want her to be in my house. I mean, according to my more recent test, I'm actually apparently a Ravenclaw anyways, so I guess I'm more like some kind of weird Slitherclaw hybrid apparently in the present. I personally feel like when it comes to Wanda, it's her determination, sometimes her desperation, and her inability often to back down that really sticks out to me when it comes to her character, and we all know that ambition is a main house trait among Slytherins. And apparently being evil is, according to Andrew, so watch out for Wanda. Number 8. Damon Hellstrom. We don't talk about Damon Hellstrom enough on this channel, so I'm happy to have him featured here on my powerful mystical superheroes list. While Damon is often thought of as being more demonic in origin, that is kind of exactly what connects him to the realm of mysticism as well. After all, demons are usually all connected within the world of magic in Marvel, and I would say in DC besides. Damon also might be the son of a powerful demon who either is or at least claims to be the devil, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad guy. Damon has often tried to live his life more as a hero and initially was like an occult detective in the comics, answering calls and trying to fight against his dark side, balancing it with good deeds and acts of heroism as he combated against other demons and the evil side of the supernatural. Number 7. Jason Blood. When we talk about Etrigan, we often have a tendency to forget about Jason Blood, whom the powerful Prince of Hell is bonded to. While Jason might not be hellish royalty, he's actually still impressively powerful, even on his own. In the New Earth continuity, it was during his time with Etrigan likely that Jason became more powerful and well trained in the mystical arts and world of occult and demonology. However, it was hard for Jason to discern his true origin initially, as being bonded to Etrigan made his memories foggy. It was initially believed he was a member of the cult of Gaia, but later he learned that before his time bonded to Etrigan, he was a simple peasant and family man, who after the bonding process, in an uncontrollable frenzy, basically killed his own wife and his children, earning the name Jason of the Blood, later shortened to Jason Blood. In the Prime Earth continuity, however, Jason Blood was a scribe to Merlin, learning from him, when he was chosen to be bonded to the demon Etrigan. Merlin chose to bond Jason because he saw Jason's destiny. In both continuities, even without his bond to Etrigan, Jason Blood is a powerful magic user, although his bond to Etrigan does of course make him even stronger. Number 6. John Constantine. John Constantine is a fan favorite among DC and of course Vertigo readers, or former Vertigo readers since Vertigo's not a thing anymore. While he isn't the most natural born caster, he is good at making do with what he's got and smooth talking his way through solutions to, at times, seemingly apocalyptic problems. Constantine is kind of like the Odysseus of magic users. He's wily, surprisingly quick-witted, resourceful, and fairly ruthless. There is also no low too low for him to sink to, which means that he often pulls off impressive feats by the skin of his teeth simply because he's willing to go a route that most heroes wouldn't or couldn't even entertain. Of course, this also makes him quite a bit of a scoundrel, which is also perhaps what makes him all the more charming and well liked among us fans. In other words, Constantine is more powerful for how resourceful he is than his own personal power set, I would say. He also is an anti-hero or hero that you love to read about, but probably not one you'd actually want to know or befriend were he to exist in real life. I know there's going to be people in the comments that are going to be like, no, I want to be friends with Constantine, but just be careful because, you know, he might sacrifice you to try to get something for himself or to try to fix a bigger problem. He's definitely done that to people before and just killed them and been like, sorry about that. Sorry mate, that's just how it goes. Number 5. Dr. Fate. Whether we are talking about Nabu, Kent, or Khalid, there have been many powerful incarnations of Dr. Fate over the years. The current Dr. Fate in the comics though is Khalid, so we're going to talk a little bit more about him today, although all Dr. Fates are powerful. Khalid might be the newer Dr. Fate, but that doesn't mean he's weak. He might still be getting a hang of his powers, but when we got to glimpse into his potential future during the Future State event, we learned that Khalid is fierce, capable, and brave enough to take on Merlin and bring the Justice League Dark back together in order to get their help in facing off with Merlin. While in this alternate future Dr. Fate and the Justice League Dark fail to stop Merlin in the end, Dr. Fate here does inform Etrigan that there is one future where the team wins against their foe and declares that he knows this because he's lived all of these possible futures out before. Also, wow, that is such an Infinity War moment. He's like, look, there's only one reality where this is gonna work out, so just you remember stuff, Etrigan, because you exist sort of outside of time because you're a demon. This also means that while we see Dr. Fate lose here, there is a reality where he and his team win against Merlin, which is an amazingly impressive feat because Merlin is crazy powerful, especially in Future State. Number 4. Doctor Strange. While normally Doctor Strange would always hijack our top spot on this kind of list, lately in the comics things have been a little bit weird for our hero of mysticism. And also, he's kinda dead. Well, dead and not dead. Let me explain. The series Death of Doctor Strange deals with, you guessed it, the death of Doctor Strange. However, while current Stephen may be dead and gone in our current continuity, a temporal version of him from the past appears to take his place. The only thing about this version of Doctor Strange is while he's still powerful, he'd only have the same power level, experience, and skill set of Doctor Strange at the time that he is from, meaning he's likely not as powerful as the more experienced and older version that seemingly mysteriously died. Number 3. Zatanna. Zatanna is one of the most powerful magic users in the DC universe. She was born into magic, being the daughter of John Zatara. As such, part of Zatanna's natural affinity for magic comes from her lineage and from the fact that she is considered a Homo Magi, its own magical subrace of the human species. Whether we're talking about New Earth or Prime Earth in terms of our DC continuities, Zatanna is considered a magical powerhouse in either. She also loves magic so much at one point that she actually had to acknowledge that it was an addiction for her. That's how steeped in magic she is. Among her long list of powers, she is capable of manipulating and controlling time, traveling to alternate worlds and dimensions, elemental manipulation and control, telepathy, telekinesis, memory manipulation, matter manipulation at a molecular level, healing, creating force fields, teleporting, turning invisible or phasing, and illusion casting, or possibly even reality warping. Like I said, depending on which continuity we're talking about. This is cross-continuity powers, but still. It's nuts. Number 2. Wiccan. As a fan favorite, Wiccan has also been thought of as a perfect pick for Sorcerer Supreme at times where we've been lacking one, or just at times where Strange seemed to be keeping an eye on, a potential replacement. While Billy Kaplan may have been lacking in previous years, more recently in the comics, throughout the events of Empire and King in Black, he's proven just how impressive a magic user he is. Wiccan is the reincarnated son of Scarlet Witch, so when it comes to being a magical powerhouse, it's kind of in his family tree. While on his honeymoon with his new husband and love of his life, Hulkling, Billy helped to save an entire resort planet's populace and tourists from Null's symbiotic space dragons. The cool thing about Wiccan's powers is they typically work based on his will and his desires, allowing him to warp reality as need be. So if you want something to happen magically, it can, and it just does. And fortunately, he seems to have a little bit more control over that in comparison to Wanda, who has willed things into existence before without really knowing, or at least willing to realize, that her magic was behind it. Number 1. Dr. Voodoo. Dr. Voodoo is Jericho Drumm, who himself in the Marvel Universe was known as Sorcerer Supreme at one point. He took over when Doctor Strange was no longer deemed worthy and served as his replacement for a time. Eventually, he and Strange were forced to face the evil forces of Agamotto together, who wasn't impressed with either option at the time when it came to Sorcerer Supremes. Dr. Voodoo has also shared the leadership role of Strange Academy with his friend and magical colleague Stephen Strange. He is well known for his voodoo magic, which he trained to use when becoming a Hungan in his brother's place. He typically uses his voodoo magic to tap into and utilize white magic. Drumm can also use his magic to influence and inspire the undead and spirits to do his bidding, teleport, manipulate time and matter, create powerful magical force fields and shields, influence animals, and wield the power of the elements, among many other things. Number 10. Tarot. Tarot is Marie-Ange Colbert, a mutant we haven't heard from in a while, but who has recently turned up at least via text, if not visually, in the Dawn of X line. During the Ten of Swords event, she was the one to receive and communicate the powerful tarot reading that seemed to be reappearing all over the world. Tarot's mutant powers are precognition, which through the use of her tarot cards gives her amazingly accurate and specific readings pertaining to the future of an individual or an event. She has also been able to get readings on past events as well. It's a very specific mutant power that is pretty intimately tied to the mystic arts via the power of tarot. But still, anytime you can read the future, I think that's pretty powerful.
Part of an immortal race known as the Eternals, Pixie is a free-spirited superhero who was present and defended the Earth during the Skrull invasion. Pixie is actually one of the few survivors from the first line, and set off the chain reaction that helped to destroy the Skull Armada. After this, she retired from adventuring on Earth, but occasionally still assisted her fellow Eternals. When the X-Men went to the Himalayas and encountered Yeti, she was the one who showed up and helped to take him down, having worked with Yeti in the past as part of the first line. After the Civil War, Tony Stark considered her as a potential recruit for the Initiative. She has a set of superpowers common to all Eternals, including super strength, flight, psionic abilities, and she can even project energy, but not at the same level as some other Eternals. She is immortal and already hundreds of years old, and has a natural psychic block in place to prevent mind reading and mind control.
Number 8. Witchfire. Probably one of the most underrated character in terms of just how cool she is Witchfire. Honestly, I gotta do a cosplay of this magical hero at some point. Many people don't even seem to know about her, at least not my near and dear friends who read comics, which makes sense considering that she only has had a small amount of appearances in comparison comparison to other mystics like John Constantine and Zatanna. Rebecca Carstairs appeared back in the days of the New Earth continuity, and while known for her skills as a witch, she was established as a famous singer, actress, and fashion model as well. As her name implies, she is a witch, so she has magical abilities, but is also well versed in pyrokinesis in addition. When she appeared in the Prime Earth continuity in 2018's Justice League Dark, she was actually sporting a pretty fitting outfit to match her fire skills, with shoulder pads that were made of literal fire, which traditionally tends to be her look. Sadly, her appearance there also resulted in her death, but she was up against some pretty powerful beings at that time, namely the Queen Mother of Witches, Hecate, or Hecate, or Hecate, depending on how you like to say that. Number 7. Detective Chimp. While often thought of as a supremely intelligent hero, with his abilities more about his brain and skills of deduction, similar in some ways to Bruce Wayne, aka Batman's main skill set, Bobo T. Chimpanzee is actually mystical in nature when it comes to his own origins. He was granted knowledge thanks to the magical place known as the Fountain of Youth. There, he gained the ability to speak to all beings, an enhanced genius-level intellect, and, of course, eternal youth. Bobo at one point also inherited the Sword of Night, gifted to him by Nightmaster, the former protector of the magical fantasy dimension known as Mira. And he has shown ability before to use his intellect to better understand mystical texts than even experienced and prominent magic users like Zatanna. Number 6. Talisman. Elizabeth II Youngman is Talisman, the daughter of another powerful magic user, Shaman. Like her father before her, Liz hails from the Sarsi tribe and would also end up becoming a team member of Alpha Flight, even though she and her father had a strained relationship growing up due to the death of her mother, which she blamed her father for. Eventually, they would make up, and Talisman would even follow in her father's mystical footsteps. Her codename, Talisman, comes from the powerful magic item that she wields, the Talisman or Coronet of Power, which grants Elizabeth her abilities. However, even without it, she is able to manipulate mystical energy, sensing it, redirecting it, and communing with spirits. Number 5. Black Panther. Black Panther also happens to be a mystical superhero, although as a world leader, we usually think of him for his democratic as well as his tactical abilities, and of course his physical prowess as a fighter. His powers are actually steeped in mysticism though. The powers granted to T'Challa by the heart-shaped herb are believed to be somewhat divine, and in addition to those abilities, he was also granted more power from the goddess Bast during his reign as King of the Dead. Through his powers granted to him by Bast, he can connect with all the previous Black Panthers to have come before him, drawing on their wisdom, their knowledge, and their strength. In addition, he was granted power over the dead, becoming a necromancer. Number 4. Black Alice. Black Alice is one that I don't even think we have ever mentioned on this channel. At least, I don't think I've ever mentioned her. As far as my videos are going, I don't think I've ever brought her up. She is one of the members of the Sisterhood of the Sleight Hand. Her powers are pretty crazy. She is mystical based, and rather than being a straight-edge superhero, she's more of an anti-hero. She has a goth-inspired look, which I am super here for. Her magical abilities allow her to adopt the powers of any magical being for a short time, literally taking their powers, so leaving whoever she is lending from powerless until such a time as she is either done using said powers or time runs out on her own abilities. Black Alice's real name is Lori Zeklin, and she made her first appearance in the New Earth continuity back in Birds of Prey issue number 76 in 2004. Number 3. Manitou Dawn. Manitou Dawn is a character from DC Comics who definitely deserves more love than she gets. She has been associated with the Justice League Elite in the past and is a proud member of the Apache tribe. Her and her husband are both powerful mystics, and at one point Manitou Dawn also garnered attention from Hecate, becoming one of her witch-marked. Manitou Dawn was one of the few people to survive Hecate's attack on the universe. Her magical ability allows her to change size, teleport, manipulate time, telekinesis, and even grants her resurrection powers. While also associated with the Apache tribe, Manitou Dawn is actually from Atlantis, being born there before the famed city sunk into the ocean. She was one of the first members of the Apache tribe, migrating to America eons ago and actually playing a role in its beginnings. At least, in the comics, not necessarily in real life, because she's not a real person, as far as I know. Number 2. Agatha Harkness. Agatha Harkness is one of the most powerful magic users out there, especially when it comes to her knowledge and experience. While posed as a villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where she was revealed to be the main antagonist of the Disney Plus streaming series WandaVision, in the comics, Agatha is much more neutral and has often tried to help protect the world rather than cause harm to it. Sure, she doesn't always make the best call in order to do so, but at least, she's trying to help, not hurt for the most part. Agatha's list of magical powers and abilities is long and includes transmutation, scrying, teleportation, magic negation and reflection, telekinesis, fusion, telepathy, elemental control, and the manipulation of dimensions, among many other abilities. Number 1. Storm. Because Storm is a mutant, many people dismiss her as not being magical in nature. And while her powers are of course mutant in origin, there is actually a lot of mystical heritage, potential, and actual supernatural and spiritual mysticism attached to Aurora Monroe. For one, Storm comes from a long line of powerful magical ancestors, and in fact her striking hair and eye color combination come up frequently in her lineage, also usually coming with magical potential and ability as well. She is related to both the Sorcerer Supreme of the Hyborian Age, Priestess Aisha, and Ashake, who worshipped the mother of Agamotto, Egyptian goddess Maat, sometimes known as Oshtur, and who also once used her magical abilities to help a time-displaced Mirage and magic. Herself, Storm has been both worshipped as and later granted a godhood herself, becoming a goddess whose power is fueled by people's belief in her. And it was also said at one point that she was one of the few with a powerful enough spirit to act as the host or potential host or avatar for the consciousness of eternity. Seriously though, I do not do enough magic-based superhero cosplay. I really need to get on that. Number 10. Spiral. I always forget that Spiral has magic, but not today! Today we're going to hype her up. Spiral is known for being a villain to the X-Men. She is an agent of Mojo's from the Mojoverse, who typically folks know from the comics for her focus on manipulating and altering characters by giving them cybernetic parts or upgrades. She was the one responsible for giving Psylocke, Betsy Braddock, her purple cybernetic eyes, and also had a hand in the whole body swap merge fiasco with Betsy and Quanon. However, aside from all that weird problematic stuff, Spiral is also a magic user. It's true, she uses dance moves with her 6 arms to not only wield weapons and fight against her opponents, but also to cast various spells, which she can even use to do things like heal, teleport, turn invisible, and even temporarily remove or disrupt the superpowers of her opponents. Pretty fun stuff. Number 9. Mephisto. Mephisto is often thought of as the devil of Marvel. He rules over his own hellish dimension and is known for making lots of contracts with heroes that usually results in them being very unhappy in the end, despite getting apparently what they wanted. They'll be like, I want this, and then unfortunately with a lot of the catches that come with it, you end up pretty unhappy. But Mephisto's like, hey, you got what you wanted. Much like the devil in various tales and lore, he's not someone you want to make a bargain with, as typically there are conditions, which means that Mephisto often comes out on top. Mephisto is both demonic and magical in terms of his origin and classification in Marvel's various realms of categories for characters. And if he plays his cards right, he can even use his powers to warp reality, which we've actually seen him successfully do with feats like erasing Mary Jane and Peter's marriage. And what's more, it's a reality warp that actually stuck, which is kind of rare in the world of comics. Mephisto is also a formidable foe in one-on-one combat, being that he is also super strong, durable, fast, and virtually immortal.
Number 8. Wiccan. Wiccan, also known as Billy Kaplan and formerly known as the hero Asgardian, was revealed to be one of the long-lost children of Scarlet Witch and Vision. His powers come from the same form of chaos magic as his mother, whereas his twin brother Speed inherited similar abilities to their uncle Quicksilver. Billy grew up in New York with his adoptive parents who, he thought were his real ones for the longest time, Rebecca and Jeff Kaplan. Billy was bullied all the time because of his sexual orientation, and one day after being beaten up by John Kessler, Billy decided to go to his favorite place in the entire world, the Avengers Mansion. It was there he met his favorite Avenger, Scarlet Witch, who gave him advice on how to stand up to the bully. He didn't really take the advice right away, he kept trying to avoid the problem, and then one day he noticed John tormenting another kid and decided, you know what, enough is enough. He stood up to John, which in turn ended up unlocking his abilities, resulting in him almost killing him. Later on, he ended up becoming a member of the Young Avengers and is in a relationship with fellow Young Avenger, Hulkling. Wiccan has a wide array of abilities that include, teleportation, flight, mystical reality warping, force fields, telekinesis, and telepathy. One thing to note is that he is still young. Many believe that, as he gets older, he'll become even more powerful, so, odds are he will only get closer to the top of this list as the years go on. Number 7, Zatanna. Zatanna is a powerful magical magician. She's the daughter of the famous magician John Zitara and magical user Cinderella, who was a member of the magical group the Hidden Ones. For most of her life, Zatanna believed her mother died when she was, really young, which turned out obviously not to be true. It turns out she faked her own death so she could be with her own people. She was primarily raised by her father John, who took her all around the world, helping her learn and control the magical abilities she inherited. Unfortunately, an evil witch, Allura, cursed Zatanna, and she couldn't see her father ever again. But she was eventually able to break that curse, but it just took a really long time. Also, when she casts spells, in order for them to work, she needs to say them backwards. She's also been a member of the Justice League and Justice League Dark. She can also use her spells to control fire, air, ice, earth, plants, and she can also fly, control the weather, and make illusions, use telekinesis, telepathy, travel to different dimensions, and create force fields. Number 6, John Constantine. Oh man, John Constantine. As I mentioned in a previous video, I know in the original source material it's pronounced Constantine, but in all of his live action appearances and animated appearances, he's referred to as Constantine, and honestly that's just kind of the preferred pronunciation nowadays. Okay, so John Constantine is a magical con man. He was born in Liverpool and raised in London. He's a master of dark arts and smokes a ton of cigarettes and says whatever he wants, and that's usually why he tends to rub people the wrong way. But he honestly doesn't care. One of the most famous stories regarding John is the Newcastle incident. When he was younger and not as skilled in magic, John made a fatal mistake that would haunt him for the rest of his life. John was called to help a young girl named Astra. She was possessed by a demon, so John decided to summon his own demon to get rid of the one that was in Astra. It worked, but John lost control of the demon he summoned, and it ended up taking young Astra back down to hell with it. John has become one of the most powerful magic users in the DC world, and since he is a master of the dark arts and practiced magic his entire life, John can, cast spells, he can summon demons, obviously, and travel to different dimensions. Number 5, Shazam. Originally known as Captain Marvel, Shazam is a superhero from the DC universe. Now, there have been a few different origins for Shazam. Today, I am going to talk about the one that came out of the New 52, which was the main, inspiration for the 2019 film Shazam. Billy Batson is an orphan who consistently ran away from every new family that he was ever put with. Eventually, the Vasquez family adopts him, and that's when things start to change in a way. They are a very loving family with multiple adopted children. Of course, this still doesn't stop Billy from just trying to leave at the first chance he gets. One night, Billy sneaks out to visit a tiger at the zoo, Mr. Tawny, but is followed by his new adopted brother, Freddy. They then decide to take revenge on these bullies from their school, who have, tormented the family for the last few years. Of course, something goes wrong and the bullies find them. Billy then decides to distract them, which allows his brother Freddy to get away. He then escapes onto the subway and is taken to the mystical fortress known as the Rock of Eternity. From there, the wizard known as Shazam sees Billy's potential and how he has a good heart and bestows his powers onto him. So now he can stop Black Adam and the 7 deadly sins. Now, to access these powers, all he has to say is Shazam, and he transforms into a full-grown adult with powers. The wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. Number 4, Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff comes from the Marvel Universe and has a very complicated history. For a very long time, it was believed she and her twin brother Pietro, aka Quicksilver, were the kids of, supervillain Magneto, but that ended up not being the case and was later changed. Turns out Wanda and her brother were taken from their real parents when they were very young and experimented on by the High Evolutionary. So not only did they reveal that Magneto wasn't her true father, it also revealed that she wasn't technically even a mutant either. Back to the main point, Scarlet Witch is just insanely powerful. I mean, she can manipulate and warp reality and is able to cast very powerful spells. Wanda has even been a member of the Avengers and ended up having 2 kids with fellow Avenger Vision, one of which we mentioned earlier on the list. During the events of the House of M storyline, which is now referred to as M-Day, Wanda uttered the words "no more mutants" and caused almost the entire mutant population to lose their powers. Oh jeez. Number 3, Dr. Fate. Now, Dr. Fate is a DC character that has been the title of different people over the years, but today I'm going to talk about the one that's arguably the most famous, Kent Nelson. Ken was the son of an archaeologist. Him and his father were exploring a tomb and accidentally awoke Naboo the Wise, which ended up releasing this poison gas and took the life of Kent's father. Naboo decided to take Kent on as his apprentice, even though, Ken didn't really want to. So Naboo erased all of Ken's memories of his father and began to train him. He eventually became very, very powerful in the ways of magic, and Naboo decided to give him his memories back. Of course, Kent wasn't really happy about the whole situation, but Naboo explained that he was the Lord of Order and has been fighting the never-ending battle between order and chaos. Before leaving, Naboo gave Kent a golden amulet and helmet. He told Kent that these two items would grant him even more power, and of course, Naboo's spirit is directly tied to the helmet, so anyone that ends up putting it on is connected with him. Dr. Fate went on to be one of the founding members of the Justice Society of America, and he has a wide array of abilities, flight, spells, telekinesis, enhanced strength, speed, invisibility, time travel, reality manipulation, and of course, is immortal. Number 2, the Spectre. Also from DC, the Spectre is a mystical being who, like Dr. Fate, has been linked to multiple people throughout the years. The most popular version being Jim Corrigan, a cop who was murdered by a gang. Hal Jordan, also known as Green Lantern, has also been the Spectre at one point in the comics, and one of the more recent ones was Oliver Queen, aka the Green Arrow, during the Arrowverse crossover event Crisis on Infinite Earths, based on the comic of the same name. The Spectre's powers are directly tied to the presence, which is kind of like DC's version of God, in a sense. His mission is to deliver God's vengeance upon those who are evil. Now, on his own, his powers are essentially limitless, but in order to operate on Earth, he needs to have a human host. And that's where, some of his limitations come in. Although, that doesn't really stop him from being one of the most powerful beings in the universe. He has been a crucial part of multiple world-ending threats in the DC world, the most famous being Crisis on Infinite Earths, where he helped the Paragons stop the Anti-Monitor. And, fun fact, he is also one of the founding members of the Justice Society of America. His powers include immortality, reality alteration, dimension travel, flight, super strength, fear projection, invisibility, and the list just goes on and on. The guy can basically do anything, and he's pretty awesome. Number 1, Doctor Strange. Was there ever any doubt? Magic and Doctor Strange, they just go hand in hand together. Dr. Stephen Strange hails from the Marvel Universe. He was a highly skilled surgeon who got into a terrible accident, permanently damaging the nerves in his hands. Stephen tried to heal his hands any way he could, but nothing was working. Modern medicine was just failing him. So he decided to go beyond that. That's when he found the Ancient One, who taught him in the ways of magic. One of the things I admire most about Doctor Strange is that he has truly grown as a character. He was this jerk with just a massive ego and thought nothing bad would ever happen to him, but of course, that's not how life works. And after the accident, he trained for years and years to become the most powerful sorcerer in the Marvel Universe. And, that is pretty awesome. His powers include casting spells, astral projection, flight, because of his handy-dandy cloak of levitation, protective shields, illusions, time manipulation, telekinesis, and dimensional travel.